stop right here. I says, this is my business. Because I have to go in and pick up your poopy bags.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
I said, so, and then his wife says, well, what would you rather me do? Just leave it on the ground? I said, no, I'd rather have you pick it up and then take it home with you.
Yeah.
Throw it in your own garbage can. So, you know what? Since I talked to him and I showed him what was going on, I backed off and I apologized. I said, I'm sorry I got rude. But I want to show you what happens. And I said, the reason the shovel's back here is so that I don't have to touch your poopy bags. And you know what? Since then, Danny, I haven't thrown any poopy bags over there.
Yeah, that's good.
But I apologized to him. I said, I'm really sorry, but I have to pick up after you. And I really don't think I should have to do that.
No. Okay, who do we got here? Let's see. All right, thank you.
Yeah, the drop-off box over there.
Yeah, it's over there. Right to the left of the bookcase.
After he apologized, he's out there wanting to start wars. Yes. I said, you put your hands on me, I'm going to take you to the ground. People never learn.
No.
You need any help with anything?
No.
Okay.
They should be in the hallway there, Mitch. Yeah, you can. I don't know who's going to be here. How are you?
I'm good. So I just have to explain what a negative is. I'm like, millennials are not going to know what that is, Danny. I knew what it was, I just didn't know that's what it was called. I was negative, so I didn't really get it 100%. Yeah.
Oh, see, the white one.
There's no white ones there?
Oh.
How about in that room? Hi, Robin. Good. How are you?
Hello. I wrote this down. When you learn how much you're worth, you'll stop giving people this. Yeah, that's a good one.
She was back at the cabin tonight and he was gone. Oh,
I don't know.
Yeah, that's right. How's that? How's that? I just enjoy it. Man, still go. Still, I'm wrong. Yeah, yeah.
that's one. We got more tables than people. Yeah, I think we got enough tables.
Front row center.
Are you guys having trouble connecting?
Yeah, occasionally.
Talking to the computer, Robert. I see Elizabeth is still trying to connect. Are you having trouble there?
Keep on raining though. It's raining season though.
Yeah, it is.
That's what it is. And he was home. Yeah.
And then it's the left side of the table.
I got one last itch. I got one, man. I got one last success.
Hey, Dan.
Hello, Danny.
How are you?
I'm well. I'm here.
All right. Trying to figure out how to get this the way I need it to be. Okay, I think I got it now. All right. All right. Hi, Kim.
Hi. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. I got here early for once.
Okay. That's allowed.
Thank you.
Jeff, he's not smiling.
Because I knew I was coming.
Hey, Greg. Hey, Charlotte.
Hey, Danny.
How are you?
I'm excellent. Love the hat.
Thanks. It's raining here.
Oh, boy.
What's up, Len? How you doing, pal? Hello.
Oh, wow.
On TV. Hello.
It's beautiful here in Florida.
Why?
I'm gonna start Purpose Driven Life with a church group,
Oh, okay.
and it's Wednesdays at 6:30.
Oh, okay. Well, you can watch it on YouTube.
What do I look up?
The recording. This recording is on YouTube.
Okay.
It's on. Usually, this video will be up by tomorrow.
Okay.
What's up, Deb?
Hey.
I think I got it figured, but I got this box here. So. Well, we're gonna miss you here.
Yeah, I've learned a lot, especially like how to work steps 1 and 2 with spontaneity.
Well, stay tuned with it and you can learn the other 10.
Yeah, right? I get my 1-year chip on the 12th of next month.
Oh, very cool.
So I guess that's what, like 2 weeks.
Gerald, what you did, Gerald? I ain't seen you at CA lately. What the hell about that?
I go on anytime.
I go on, he told me, Saturdays and
Last
Sundays,
night?
sometimes Sundays.
Between 2 o'clock and Saturday. That's curious. Been doing Tuesdays and Thursdays. I didn't make it last night. So.
Hey, I'm all done. See you, man.
Oh, Gilligan Island reruns must be finished.
You gotta hold down Andy Griffith.
Yeah, Andy Griffith, that's it.
Man.
What's up, bro?
Hi.
Sister, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Where are you taking my hand?
That's what the pros do.
What's happening, young man?
I got it cut today.
I see that.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to had a girl do the undercut this part
Yeah.
the other day. And she did great. It looked great. I said, I can use a trim too. So this probably won't mean anything to you, but it may be to you. So it's naturally curly, so she just combs it straight and went like that. And so, once it was washed and dried, it was like this. I was like, man, I need to go get that fixed. So, huh? Oh yeah. Yeah.
What's an undercut?
This part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no.
She's really great for like when you have crap ton of hair. Yeah, and it does whatever the hell it wants. It does everything except what you want it to do.
Do you lift weights?
Hi, Jim.
Did mostly yoga. Some weightlifting, not a whole lot.
Well, get back to the sick. I know we ain't at Armando.
No, I got up, showered, saved good. They don't want to bed. 9:30 and 12 till 7.
Where's old Jerry at, Will?
Who?
Jerry.
I don't know.
He's in a convoy, bringing back his mother-in-law's furnishings from Washington State.
Ah, okay.
Janine's here to Oklahoma City.
All right. All right, everybody. Let's grab a seat and get started. There's a feedback coming from somewhere here, so mute yourselves, guys. Hi, Kathy. Jim, how are you? Okay. Better, I think. All right. So I got a couple of questions over the week from some people. Somebody asked me about, we talked about we talked a lot about your understanding of God back in the second step. And if you don't do any work on step 2, then it's really difficult to come into the third step and turn your will and your life over to something you're not quite sure who it is, or just a generic thought that you've always had all your life. That's why I always ask you based on what. So it's somebody asked me about that. I just wanted to bring it up. So the importance is the second step, doing the footwork. And all right, so let's go ahead. I believe we're on page 60. Is that right? Well, we skipped around a little, but basically we're talking right after the 3 pertinent ideas. And that, I think I asked you last week, why is it, we talked about it saying, being convinced we're at step 3, and then 3 pages later, it says we were at step 3. Again, right? So we talked a little bit about that. And it's all about the first requirement. And that being that any life run on self-will could hardly be a success. Okay. And none of us get to the point where we're fully convinced at this stage of our recovery. And that's why they give us plenty of examples on the next few pages of how self-will works in our life. And we need to take a look at that, because it's real important to understand how in the 4th step, we're going to start inventorying how we've always acted, reacted, and thought in all kinds of given situations. Thought, acted, and reacted our whole lives, right? So looking at self-will in step 3 helps us with that. Understanding where my self-will has worked. And there was an old timer in LA, one of the original guys there, a long time, maybe from the 40s or 50s. I think the 50s actually. And let me think of his name for a minute. Norm Alpy. His name was Norm Alpy. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Norm. And Norm, he gave a great talk, and he always talked about seconds and inches. Life is about seconds and inches. Everything is seconds and inches. And what he meant by that was that whatever was going on in life is a situation, it's always right on me. And my whole life, when something is right on me, I have to react and get it off of me. I got to get it off of me. And Norm talked about learning how to realize that we're first of all emotional people. We think and act on emotion more than intellect, right? We talked about that. But seconds and inches. So what we're going to learn how to do in recovery is we're just going to learn how to take this off, whatever the situation is, and take a look at it. Just remove it off of me and take a look at it. And so in doing so, we learn how to respond to life rather than to react to life. And the reason I'm bringing that up now, we're going to probably talk about that again later in the steps, but the reason I'm bringing it up now is because we're talking about self-will. Okay. And self-will demands that I be rid of all of these things, and it demands that I react to life. Self-will does not allow me to respond to life. Okay. Because I have to have it my way, and I have to have it now, not now, right now. And so this is the stuff we're going to look at in the 3rd step. So if the first requirement is that we be convinced that any life run on self-will could hardly be a success. And he talks about we're always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Let me ask you this. Does everybody know that there's actually two wills? There's two wills. There's self-will and there's God's will. Okay. Now, are we able to act on God's will all the time? No. Are we even aware what God's will for us is? Well, if we ask and then take the time to listen, and take the time to practice, it comes to us. But it's real simple. I told you some weeks ago that we don't always know what God's will for us is, but we always know what God's will for us is not.
Yeah.
So when you realize what God's will is not, then don't do that. So Earl Husband used to talk about stop doing what you know is wrong and practice right as you understand it. Wow. So and we went over all the 5 parts of the third step, right? And I shared with you, in my opinion, that the most important part is that dirty 4-letter word care, C-A-R-E, right? That that's a tough one. But if I learn to turn my thoughts and my actions over to the care of God, I learn how to get out of the result business. And if I get out of the result business, my spirituality soars. And I'm pretty level-headed going through life. So again, you could plan life. We're not going to go through life blind, but we don't want to plan the results. So you check your motives, you do the best you can, and whatever happens is none of your business. It's tough to get there, but that's where we want to go. All right, so from the bottom of page 60, for the next couple of pages, is going to give us examples of self-will. And on the bottom of page 60, most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show. And none of you relate to that, I'm sure, but is forever trying to arrange the lights, the scenery, the rest of the plays in his own way. If his arrangements would only stay put, if only people would do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor may sometimes be quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, even modest and self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is more likely to have varied traits. So he's talking about how now, and it's not good enough to just read this, okay? When we want to study this book, so what you want to do with each of these paragraphs is, how in my life has that happened? Where have I played the actor? Where have I been magnanimous? Or it's a good word, right?
It's a great word.
where have I been magnanimous? Where have I been, too short with somebody? I want to look at it because it's all about what? It's all about trying to get a result. A lot of times it's not even a conscious thought. But my mind tells me that I know what's best, and I know what I want, and I know what's going to make me happy. And so if I clear the way for that, then like he just talked about here, if everybody did what he said to do, then everything's going to be perfect. And of course, that's bullshit. That doesn't work. That doesn't happen, right? But that's what we believe. And so some of these things are so deep rooted in us, this selfishness and this self-centeredness and how we run on self-will, that we don't even know it. We don't even realize that we're in it or we're doing it or that's how we're acting. And so unless we take some time and look at this, and that's really what you're going to look at in the 4th step, really. You're going to look at how you've thought, acted, and reacted to all kinds of given situations your whole life. But it helps to prepare yourself with what he's talking about here. So how in my life has this happened? Okay. Then he says, what usually happens? The show doesn't come off very well. He begins to think life doesn't treat him right. He decides to exert himself more, right? If it don't fit, what do? We try harder. I don't know about you guys, but I've spent my entire life trying to fit the circle into the square. And when it didn't fit, I just tried to push harder. I'm going to make it fit, right? And that's, of course, a metaphor for how I acted in life. But that's what we're talking about. And that's why I wrote this up here today. Life is like a camera. Focus on what's important, develop from the negatives. And if things don't work out, take another shot. But no, if things don't work out, we try harder. We push harder. We push others harder. So we have to be aware of this stuff. He becomes on the next occasion still more demanding or gracious as the case may be. Still, the play doesn't suit him. Admitting he may be somewhat at fault, he is sure that other people are more to blame. Of course, I had, again, where in my life has this happened? I look at a situation, of course, I could have done better, but if she didn't do that, or he didn't act that way, or they didn't do that, it wouldn't have been half as messed up as it came out to be. So I don't want to, and in the fourth and fifth step, we're going to learn how to own all this stuff, but first I have to be aware of it. So he becomes angry and then self-pitying. What is his basic trouble? Is he not really a self-seeker, even when trying to be kind? Is he not a victim of the delusion that he can wrest satisfaction and happiness out of this world if only he manages well? Is it not evident to all the rest of the plays that these are the things he wants? And do not his actions make each of them wish to retaliate, snatching all they can get out of the show? Is he not, even his best moments, a producer of confusion rather than harmony? That's a tough one to swallow there. So again, where in my life has this scenario played out? And how many times? And if you're really honest with yourself, you're probably going to see over and over and over again that this is played out in your life. And you trying to manipulate the whole thing. And that is what self-will is. So he says, our actor is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays. He's like the retired businessman who lolls in the Florida sunshine in the winter complaining of the sad state of the nation. The minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century. Politicians and reformers who are sure all would be utopia if the rest of the world would only behave. The outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him, and the alcoholic who has lost all and is locked up. So, and so what he's saying here, it's all about my resentments and my self-pity and all that stuff, right? And poor me, okay? And so here's the kicker here. He says, selfishness, self-centeredness. That we think is the root of our trouble. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation, but inevitably find that sometime in the past we've made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. So that's a very important paragraph right there. When we get into the fourth step, we're going to come back to that paragraph again, but let's look at that for a minute. So he's saying that selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of our troubles, right? And this is all about self-will working in running my life, okay? Anybody that's selfish and self-centered, anyone that's selfish and self-centered has to be driven by all kinds of fears. They have to be, because it's all about them. Everything is about me. Let me use myself as an example so you could better understand. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me. When you read this, you should talk about yourself, okay? When you study this. So everything is about me. I think I deserve something that I'm not getting. I think I have something that I might lose. So everything is about me. And so I have to be driven by all kinds of fears. And when I'm driven by all these fears, afraid I'm going to lose something that I think I got or not get something that I deserve or whatever the case may be, then I act out and I take shortcuts. So in the next step, we're going to talk about the basic instincts of life. Those are very important. Okay. But so like me, when I was a kid in school, I acted out because I wanted you to like me. I would do crazy stuff. I was in the 4th grade or the 5th grade, I think it was. And I only went to the 6th grade in school and then it was finished. But in the 5th grade, we had a substitute teacher and I was sitting on the windowsill. When she came in, she said, "All right, everybody take your seats." And she started walking through. I said, "Don't take another step, I'll jump." She didn't know that there was underneath was the entrance to the come into school. So there was an awning there. And we were on the 2nd floor and she took another step and I jumped out the window and she screamed. she lost it. I thought it was a big joke, But you see, everybody, I would do that kind of stuff because I want you to say, that Danny's crazy, I needed you to like me, And what I learned in recovery is, how are you comfortable? How can you possibly be comfortable when you have to make people like you? When you have to feel extra important or extraordinary or extraordinary, I should say, just to feel normal, right? And people like us, so I'm not the only one. A lot of us have that, right? We have to, be treated special just to feel normal. Okay, so if I'm selfish and self-centered, I have to be driven by all kinds of fears, and because I have these fears, I'm going to take shortcuts in life to get what I want and to make things happen. And when I take these shortcuts, there's no way to do that without stepping on other people's toes along the way. And when I do, the book says they retaliate and cause pain and suffering in my life. And the first thing I say when somebody does that to me is, "How could you do that to me after all I've done for you?" Now, I may not say that out loud, but I certainly think that every time. That's my first initial thought. How could you do that to me after all I've done for you? Not ever looking at what I've really done to them. So when you're driven by these kinds of fears, when you're driven by fears like this, there's no way to go through life without taking shortcuts and trying to get things to the way you want them, because that's the only way you can feel comfortable, right? And then when you do that, there's no way to do that without stepping on other people's toes. And the book's telling me what the problem is right there. At some time in the past, we made decisions based on self. When I stood in front of the judge and he sentenced me, he wasn't sentencing me on who I was at that moment. He was sentencing me on the decisions I made in the past. And here I am paying for that now. Made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. So this is what happens, okay? So understanding self-will, very important. Okay. Everybody with me so far? Anybody got any questions? No? So our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. We are extreme examples of self-will run riot, and we don't think so. That's trouble right there, isn't it? So one of the things we have to understand is that in the third step is about understanding that while we make decisions about the actions of our lives, we don't make decisions about the results of those actions.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's what we talked about last week. And we touched on this last week. It uses the word lives instead of life, okay, and not by mistake, because it reminds us to turn our will and our life over in all of the ways that self manifest. Okay, not just it's not good enough to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as far as being an alcoholic or a 12-step member. Okay, I have to do it As a parent, as a spouse, as a friend, as a business person, I have to do it in all of these areas of my lives. Okay, I have many different lives going on. The other thing we need to remember here is that any effort to know God's will is aided by being open to it. So we have to be open to that. My book's falling apart.
Time for a new one, Danny.
Yeah,
You know what they say.
I know what they say.
Okay.
But don't help my book from not falling apart.
I don't know what they say.
If the book's falling apart, it's likely to rise.
I like that.
Okay.
What did you just say about any effort in order to?
Any effort to know God's will is aided by being open to it, right? We got to be open to it. The more open we are to learning God's will, the more likely we are to discover it. When we allow self-will to run riot and insist on having our way, it's difficult to determine what God's will is, especially when we're certain about that we know what we want. When we're certain that we know what we want, we're in trouble. We better talk to somebody. Better talk to another recovering member. Better talk to your sponsor. Better talk to somebody, because we're never more blocked off from God than when we're sure about what we want. And I'm not saying that everything that we want is bad and wrong, but you better run it by somebody else. Okay. So he says our troubles we think are basically of our own making. Did we do that? And we talked about
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're saying like, well, when we're sure about something that we want. So you're saying by asking other people, sponsors or somebody else, or it gives us a better shot at looking at it from different directions. Is that?
Yeah. Especially when you're new, because your thinking is not good. Right. So I gave you guys a good exercise to do for the first step. And actually that same exercise works well throughout your life in any area of your life. I tell you, there's always 3 things you should do. Talk about it, write about it, pray about it. Take a list and write down all the good things that can happen and all the bad things that can happen. Get on your knees and pray and then talk to somebody. And usually then you'll make a more healthy decision. See, collectively, right? We're sick people, right? So we're a room full of sick people, but collectively something happens. So if I had an issue and I asked all you people together right here, right now about this issue, I would get some good, healthy feedback. But if I asked each one of you individually, I'd probably get some sick answers. Yeah, but there's something happens. There's something happens when we're together. There's a power that works. God works easier, I think, collectively like this. And you'll always get a positive answer. Nobody's going to tell you some sick shit in front of everybody. But you'll get some of that if you ask individually. So talk about it with people.
That'd be quite a study.
So he says, above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. There's a few times in the book where he talks about dying and really heading for a brick wall at 100 miles an hour. But right here, he's telling us that this is going to kill us. This self-will is going to kill us. We got to get rid of this selfishness, because if we don't, it's going to kill us. I don't know how more strong you could be in language than that. And then he says, God makes that possible. She doesn't make it possible. He doesn't make it possible. They don't make it possible. You guys don't make it possible, but God makes that possible. And if you don't have an understanding of God, God can't make that possible for you.
The selfishness part,
Yeah.
usually like our first thought or upon these.
No.
Because I'm always told, like, if I got a thought, I should always run it by the sponsor first.
You should
If I
run
got
your
another
first
thought-
10 thoughts by your sponsor. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long you sober now?
Almost 2 years.
All right. Run your first 20 thoughts by your sponsor. So, I think I shared with you last week the week before last, over the weekend, I did a 11-step workshop in London on, via Zoom. And I must have got a dozen questions about what's the most important thing about getting the 11th step. And I answered them the same way each time. The most important thing to me about getting the 11th step down is a good second and third step. Because without that, you ain't going nowhere in the 11th step. If you don't have an understanding of God that works for you, first of all, stop right there, because it would be impossible for you to turn your thoughts and your actions over to the care of something that you don't even understand, or something that you're afraid of, or something that's going to punish you, or something like that. That's why we do this fake it till you make it prayer, because we remove that negative stuff, and it allows us to open the door to a God that loves me and that I'm comfortable with. If I'm not comfortable with God, I can't possibly turn my thoughts and my actions over to him. All I'm doing is bullshitting by saying I can and I will and I do. It don't really happen. And that's the problem that most people run into in recovery when they're not. Most people don't spend time on the second step talking about God. And I don't know how they stay sober.
Yeah, I heard that.
So he says, God makes that possible. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them, even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help. We had to have God's help. And God needs to help me, or it ain't going to happen for me. I've spoken to many people over the years, going back to the first step, and they talk about, just praying to God for them to not drink or use, And I say, that's only part of it. You got to get off your ass and do something. If you think that just praying for God is going to make you not drink or use, go lock yourself in the closet and just pray to God. And then when you don't want to drink and use no more, come on out. Or lock yourself in a closet and pray for some food. If God squirts you a cheeseburger through the doorknob there, let me know about that. So praying to God is a must. Talking to God is a must, but it's not the totality of everything. We have work to do. Okay, understanding what the problem is, understanding the solution, and then taking the program of action. That's what how the program is broken down. That's what we have to follow. And as we do that, God knows when we're honest about it and what's in our heart and that we're trying. And when we do that, he helps us. He has stepped into my life so many times and done for me what I couldn't do for myself. But I've seen him not step into people's lives. And I know why. They were just bullshitting their way along here. So I can't reduce my selfish or my self-centeredness by wishing or trying on my own. We had to have God's help. So now this paragraph here is important. He says, this is the how and why of it. So now he's telling us something here. This is the how and why of it. So pay attention, because you know why you should pay attention? Because this is the how and why of it.
Here's your sign.
Yeah, right? This is the how and why of it. Yeah. First of all, we had to quit playing God. Why do we have to quit playing God?
It doesn't work.
Yeah. I love when I ask a question and people go like this, like the answer's up on the wall. It's in the book. The answer's always in the book. It doesn't work. It didn't work. That's what it said. Didn't work. We had to quit playing God. Why? Because it didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, and boy, do we make life a drama, God was going to be our director. What does that really mean? What does a director do in a movie? He tells people where to stand, how to act, what to say, how to look. You know what I mean? So if I'm going to allow God to direct my life, then I need to be open to the fact that God's trying to tell me some things. Okay? How's he trying to tell me some things? Well, he got a book here for me that helps me. He's got a sponsor that he's put in my life. Okay? Got a room full of people that we can We can talk about that. So God's going to direct my life in all of those ways and more. Okay. I need to be open to that. And I need to be able to have my comfortable understanding of God. Because again, if I'm thinking that the God in my life is punishing and going to judge me and all that, I'm not going to be open to doing this stuff with God.
You wouldn't be teachable.
No.
For many years, I thought God had to be audible, you know, and that's what you
Audible?
Audible. I had to hear, you know, and
God is audible.
He is, but not like the burning bush or off in the distance. And you know, it's through other people. It's through experience that I've learned that God shows Himself.
God shows Himself all the time. All the time. We just need to be open to it. Remember back in the second step, it talked about worshiping pomp and circumstances and money and sentiment and things. And then with the better motive, we worshipfully beheld the sunset, a sea, or a flower, right? Why? Because we were able to have the God in us connect, have an open channel.
Do you believe God works through other people to help you? Like me, like sitting in a meeting, hear somebody say something.
Well, I don't believe God has you to help me, but no,
But, you know,
no, I'm only kidding. Yes, I have. I firmly believe that everybody in the room is either an example of how I want to be or an example of how I don't want to be. And both of you, sometimes the examples of how I don't want to be are more helpful to me than the examples of how I want to be. So yes, God works through other people. You know, I've had a sponsor for years that is just such a nice guy, such a nice man, such a calm guy. And I mean, he just says, Danny, and when he just says my name, I just go, I'm already relaxed, you know. It's not anything like me at all, you know, nothing like me at all. So, yeah, God works through other people without a doubt. And through situations. Yeah. So God's going to be my director. So I'm going to allow God to direct my life. So that means if I'm going to allow God to direct my life, that means I need to stop running the show. I tell you what I say last week or the week before, that if I drove the bus of life in here, every one of you son of bitches would run for the steering wheel, right?
Yeah.
And you would. So that means that I'm not trying to run or control your life anymore. Because I have too much problem just with my own life. Forget about you and your shit. You know. So I'm not trying to. So if God is going to direct my life, let Him direct your life. Okay. So not only have I learned how to get out of result business, I learned how to get out of your business. I'm not always there, but I'm there the great majority of the time. Okay, and it's really peaceful. Not trying to run your life. Okay, my kids and two of my grandkids were just here. I took them back to the airport yesterday, and my two oldest granddaughters couldn't come because they were too busy. One was working, the other was in school. But it's very difficult with your kids and your grandkids to not, not throw your 2 cents in there. I can throw my 2 cents in there, but I learned how to do it in a way where I'm not trying to control them. I just, hey, how about this as an option, and give them something to think about.
I have a question.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's kind of random and totally off topic, but why do people say, like, putting your 2 cents in, but it's a penny for your thoughts?
You're right. That was random and totally off the topic.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a good question, right? You always put your 2 cents in.
I don't know why people listen. I shared this a year or so ago in the Western Club. I'll share it with you guys now. Everybody laughed. They thought it was funny. To me, it was really, really happened. My entire life, my mother always said, and my mother died in 1976, but growing up, she always would say, on situations she'd say, oh, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. I'd get in trouble with somebody and she's good for the goose, good for the gander. So I said that my whole life. It's good for the goose, good for the gander. I'm working with a sponsee. I'm 20 something years sober at the time, a few years back, 5 years ago, something like that. And 5, 6 years ago, I'm working with a sponsee and you know, he's 20 days sober and he said something that happened. So I said, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. And he looked at me and he said, what's a gander? And son of a bitch, if I knew what a gander was, I've just been saying it all my life, right? So I said, I don't know. And he said, well, if you don't know what it is, how do you know it's good for the gander if you don't know what a gander is? And here I am, a man of the world. I've been all over the world, 20-something years sober at the time, traveled everywhere. And I said, because my mommy said so, that's why.
Yeah. You get him, Danny.
But I tell you that story because I think I even said it last week, like with the word faith. We say things that we've been saying all our lives, and we don't really understand really what they mean and how, well, I'm going to step out on faith. No, you're not. You're stepping out on hope. But we say faith. But when we come in here, we learn that faith is knowing. Faith comes from experience. Without knowing, without being sure. Again, there's a female.
It's a male.
A male, okay. I knew it was. I didn't know. Oh, trust me, I looked it up after that. Yeah. Yeah. So, but we say shit because we've been saying shit or we've heard shit, and just because we're sober doesn't mean that changes, right? That's just the way we are. So here now, I'm going to allow God to direct my life. Now, this is important. How do I let God direct my life?
Stop running your own.
I just shared with you some things. I stopped trying to run your life. I talk things over with my sponsor. I talk about it, I write about it, I pray about it. I learned how to make healthy decisions for myself because there was nothing healthy in my life when I got sober. Nothing. It wasn't just that I was drinking and drugging. It was just nothing healthy about my life. All right, so I'm gonna this drama of life, I'm gonna now let God direct my life. And then he says, he is the principal and we are his agents. Now, this is important. Understand what this really means. And I always use Al Pacino as an example. He happens to be from my neighborhood in the Bronx. So, in fact, him and I used to drink together 45 years ago, 50 years ago, we were drinking together. But anyway, Pacino has an agent. And because he's such a famous actor, his agent, whenever he steps out on behalf of Pacino, he acts as Pacino would have him be, rather than as he would have himself be. Because he's representing Al at that particular moment in time, right? So that, because he's the agent, Pacino's the principal. So he tries to represent himself when he's dealing with for Al as Pacino would have him be. So he may know that Pacino don't like something, so that he does, and he won't go there because he's not there representing himself. He's not the principal in this situation. Pacino is. So he represents himself as Pacino would have him be. And over here he's telling me that he is that we're the agent, he is the principal, right? So if God is the principal, then I need to learn how to represent myself as God would have me be, rather than I would have myself be. Does that make sense to you? That's the idea. When he says here that he is the principal and we are his agents. So the idea now is for me to learn how to represent myself as God would have me be, rather than I'd like to be. Easier said than done, but that's what we learn here, okay? That's what we're shooting for here. I'm going to try to represent myself as God would have me be. How do I do that? Well, we already talked about it. We don't always know what God's will is, but we know what God's will is. Don't do what you know is wrong. Practice right as you understand it. There you go. Okay. Yes.
You know, if you're a Christian and you're into theological studies, that's exactly what Jesus did. He was the teacher.
Yes.
And if you look, not in the Bible, in the primary writings that exist, later got changed in the Bible. That's what he did.
Yeah.
Like his commandment, his last commandment, love one another. Doesn't show up anywhere except in God. But you know, so that's a really good thing to think about, I think.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out
Yeah.
how you're supposed to act.
Yeah. Yeah. It's try to do what you, the next right thing. You know, we say that all the time in the room. Do the next right thing. Well, shit. I came off the streets, 32 years old, been on the streets my entire life. I was running and gunning since I was 11 years old. Oh, before I was 16, I was locked up for 2 years already. 6 months in reform school, 18 months in reform school. Shit, I didn't come in here, you know, ready to you know, turn my will and my life over to anything. You know, so I had no idea. You know, Hal Orks talks about a manner of living, which, right? What, I didn't have a manner of living. It was just what I wanted, when I wanted, and how I wanted. So I'm going to try to learn how to represent myself as God would have me be. Then it says, He is the Father, and we are His children. Now this is a real interesting, simple point. Some people, I understand, some of us come from homes where we didn't have a dad. I understand that. But if that's the case, you still understand what the concept of it is, okay? My dad died when I was 10, but I come from a good, loving home. So, and up until that point in my life as a little kid, I never went to bed worried about, am I going to be able to eat tomorrow? Am I going to have shoes, or are we going to have a place to live? Those thoughts never came to my mind, ever. Because I never even thought about it. Looking back now, I'm thinking about not thinking about it, right? But the truth of the matter is, it never crossed my mind because my father provided for me what I needed. So I understand this concept. He is the Father, we are His children. That if I'm going to allow God to direct my life and I'm going to try to represent myself as God would have me be, then my Father is going to provide for me everything I need. I did not say everything that I want, but God will provide for me everything that I need. And I don't know what you need. But when I got here, I certainly needed some peace of mind. I certainly needed to be able to have my head where my feet were, because that had never been the case my entire life.
Yeah.
I've shared with you before, I'm a dreamer and a fantasizer. My feet are here and my mind is miles away, traveling, doing other things, right? Building castles in the sky. But my feet are firmly planted on the ground and my head is where my feet are today.
And that's what you'd call reality. I've had people say
I'm not sure if I call that reality, but it's certainly a good place to be.
you know, I've heard people say, well, you know, being in reality is keep my head where my feet are.
Well,
That's very true.
No, I don't think so. Just for the simple reason that most of us have our own paradigm. Okay. And our paradigm is not always reality. It's our reality. So my reality is my reality, but you know, and a paradigm means as I see the world, that's my paradigm. And as I see the world is different than as you see the world. You know.
Yeah, I know that.
And for each person, it's different. So it's important that just because I'm in reality, in my reality, doesn't mean I'm in reality. But I'm certainly closer to reality today than I was when I got here 30 years ago. But, hopefully, and that's the idea, is that's the progress of, but you see, here's the thing that sucks about AA more than anything else to me. AA is reality based and I'm not. I already told you, I'm a dreamer and a fantasizer. That's who I am. That's who my character is. That's why I write so much, right? I love to write. I got 8 novels written because I'm a dreamer and a fantasizer, and I can escape. I just write, and it's reality is AA is reality based, and by nature I'm not. So it's very difficult. As the years go by, I'm a little easier for me to be in reality. But again, my reality is not always reality.
Why do you say AA is reality? That's what reality? What are you?
Well, all the principles of AA is about getting out of the fantasy and into reality, right? I mean, that's what our principles are all about. Stop fantasizing and get real. Understand what my problem is, what the solution is, what the program of action is. These are all reality-based things, and I'm not. So it's a battle from day one because I'm not that type of person. So others are more reality-based than I am, but in general, people like us are not so reality-based.
Are you saying the fantasy is like that whenever we think that someday we might be able to drink or use like other people?
Well, that may be it for somebody new that's got reservations, But no, the fantasy that I'm talking about is not drinking or drugging, and it's not sexual. It's just me not being firmly grounded in reality, thinking that things are going to be a certain way when they're actually not. So
I don't want to keep talking, but what
Okay.
I think the reality of AA is that we're trying to help people who can't do it. And that's why they drink. It's the condition.
well, what you just said, what you just
You can figure out.
yeah, but you just said the same thing as me. You just said life on life's base, right? Isn't that reality based?
Yes.
So if AA is about helping you live life on life's base, that's being reality based. That's reality based. Okay, but reality, not my reality. Now today, my reality is much closer to reality than I've ever been in my life. But I'm still a little bit out there. We're not talking cured here. We're certainly not talking cured. All right. So he's the father and we're the children. I'm going to trust that God is going to provide for me what I need. That's the idea of a child to the father. Okay. And he says here, most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch with which we passed to freedom. So that keystone is the middle one, right? Okay. All right, now we're on page 63. And first I want to tell you that talking about everything we just talked about, it seems that we make decisions not to turn our will and our life over just as much, if not more, than we make decisions to turn our will and our life over. It may not be conscious, but because we insist on the illusion of control. I'm going to say that again, that we insist on the illusion of control. Nothing in this step relieves us of the responsibility of taking action.
So it ain't just a decision.
No, it's not just a decision. There's 5 parts to the third step. But nothing in this step relieves us of the responsibility of taking action. I hear too many people too many times in meetings talk about, I give it to God, or I let go and I let God. And I've shared when I spoke at the Western Club, God don't want that shit either.
Yeah.
You know, it's not God's job to do this work. It's my job. You know, there's things in front of me that I need to work on. God don't need to do a third step or a fourth step or any step.
Right.
But I do.
Like you said, in the previous sentence, let's get ideas are simple. We're the ones that complicate.
Yeah. So what we want to learn how to turn over is the results of the actions. That's what we want to learn how to turn over, not the actions themselves. We want to learn how to turn over the results of the actions.
That's good.
And that's where you wind up getting a spiritual jolt when you get out of the result business, right? But we do try to bring the actions in line with what we believe God's will for us is. Okay. We do the work and we leave the worry to God. When I first got sober, oh God, Dr. Paul, his story used to be the alcoholic addict. I don't know what they changed the name of it, but when I first got sober, he was speaking in New York at a convention, and I was there. He was a pretty funny guy, but he shared something. He said when he got sober this time, he signed a contract with God. He wrote out a contract and he signed the contract, and the contract was real simple that he was going to do all the work and he was going to let God do the worrying. I thought that was pretty interesting. So I do the work and I leave the worrying to God. Again, I can plan, but I don't plan results. All right, we're on page 63. The top of this page, this first paragraph, a lot of people call this the third step promises. These are not the third step promises. How do I know they're not the third step promises? You haven't done the third step yet. Promises don't come like your mom told you when you were a kid. Clean your room all week and I'll give you some money to go to the movies. End of the week, if your room has been clean, now you get the result of that promise. If your room wasn't clean, you don't get it. If you don't do the work, you don't get the result. Okay, the promises are the results. So at the next paragraph says we were now at step 3. So that means that we're not there in this paragraph. So what these are, and this Earl Husband again used to teach us this, these are 10 results of the second step. So it says, when we sincerely took such a position, all sorts of remarkable things followed. And you might want to mark these, okay? We had a new employer being all powerful. That's 1. 2, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his work well. 3, established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. 4, more and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. 5, as we felt new power flow in. 6, as we enjoyed peace of mind. 7, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence. That's 8. We began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, the hereafter. 9 and 10, we were reborn. So these are 10 results of the second step. Now, last week I said to you on page 60, it says, being convinced of the 3 pertinent ideas, we were at step 3. And now over here on page 63, it says we were now at step 3, and I asked you what the difference was. Why does it say it twice? Why is it telling me twice that we're at step 3? Well, the first one is telling me if I'm convinced of the first 2 steps, I'm at step 3. But here I am. Here's my example again. See, I'm going to New York tomorrow. I'm just giving you an example. I'm going to New York. Packed my stuff and everything. I'm not in New York. I haven't gone anywhere yet. Right? But I'm there. I'm ready to go to New York, right? But there's some stuff I got to do. I gotta be convinced that any life run on self-will could hardly be a success. I have to learn how self-will has has sabotaged my life over and over again. I got to see that selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of my troubles, and that I'm driven by all these fears, and that I'm always stepping on people's toes, and I'm always trying to control things, and I'm afraid of losing what I got or not getting what I think I deserve, and all of these things that we talked about in these prior pages. And now I get to page 63, and there's 10 results of the second step. And if you can answer positively to all 10 of these things, if this is alive and well in your life right here and right now, guess what? You're at step 3. We were now at step 3. If these 10 things are an affirmative in your life, if 9 of them are and 1 of them isn't, you're not at step 3. Go back and look at, oh yeah, you want to pass that around? Thank you. Go back and look at where self-will is dragging you down, because that's the problem. Okay? So, but if you can say to yourself, you have a new employer and he's all powerful, you can say, yes, I do. And he provided what I needed if I kept close to him and performed his work well. Yes, yes, he does. My Father provides for me what I need. If I became less and less interested in myself, my little plans and designs, yes, I have over the years. If I became more and more interested in seeing what we can contribute to life, yes, that's true for me. Have I felt this new power flow in? Yes. Do I enjoy peace of mind? I certainly do. Have I discovered that I can face life successfully? Yes, absolutely. Am I conscious of his presence? Yes. Have I lost my fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter? Pretty much I have, yes. Do I feel reborn? Oh, yeah. I am a different person. I am reborn. So those, if you've done the first 2 steps, the first 3 steps with somebody, then you're at step 3 with this person. They're ready for this. They've done some work. We're going to finish this step off next week, and we're going to get into some really deep stuff for the next few weeks here. Ooh. All right. Anybody we got a few minutes, so let's do some questions and answers. Anybody online? Because every time I go home, I get all these questions from you guys. So yeah. Anybody got questions? Anybody got a question? Anything we went over? Want to talk about something? No? Nobody. Okay, next week.
Are you going to New York tomorrow?
No, I'm not. I'm just shooting the shit. All right, guys, take care. See you guys. Jim, where are you, Jim? Jim, no matter what, Jim. Let's me and you keep coming back, huh? So long, guys.
Thank you, Danny.
Hey, Danny.
Bye. See ya. Barbara, how are you?
Thank you, Danny.
All right. So long, Tom. Bye, guys.